5 months ago I was for sure not in sub 3-hour marathon shape, but last week I ran a 2:48 in Valencia, and I did that even after being sick the whole week leading into the race. And the honest answer to how I improved my shape so much in quite a short time is this: I trained more and I got better, which sounds pretty useless, and it is if you don't understand the full context. Because I didn't suddenly train like a pro, I didn't add crazy mileage, and I didn't do anything extreme. I just started to use the limited time I have for training on what actually limited me as a marathon runner. And in this video I'll break down the 3 key things I did that took at least 13 minutes of my marathon time in just 5 months. Let's rewind a bit. This spring I ran my first marathon in 2:57. That race gave me a few smaller injuries, and it took quite a long time before I felt fully recovered again. So training consistently and motivation after that was not great. There were long stretches where I didn't train that much at all, so if I'm being kind to myself, by the end of this summer, when I started preparing for Valencia, I was probably in just over a 3-hour marathon shape. Not terrible fitness for sure, but definitely not in 2:48 on a bad day shape. So this isn't a story about stacking perfect weeks or heroic training blocks. It's about choosing the right priorities when you don't have unlimited training time or unlimited durability as a runner, which honestly is the situation for most runners I meet and work with, including myself. And the mistakes I made before this training block is the same mistake I see runners make all of the time. Okay, so here is the uncomfortable truth, and it's something I still sometimes struggle to accept myself, that most marathon improvements and running improvements in general don't come from magic workouts. They come from consistency and slowly fixing the actual limiting factor for the race that you are training for. And for most runners, including me, that limiting factor in the marathon isn't your VO2 max, it isn't your lactate threshold pace, and it definitely isn't your speed. It's muscular durability over the distance, and the ability to keep running strong when the race really starts to hurt after that 30 kilometers. So let's go through the 3 key things I changed that made this whole training block toward Valencia actually work pretty well. And the impact of one of these changes actually surprised me quite a lot. This was by far the biggest change. I stopped obsessing over smashing intervals at fast paces and started obsessing over being able to run for a long time without completely breaking down. That meant a few very specific things. First of all, more long runs, obviously. I really tried to prioritize one long run at least every single week, and preferably on a hard, flat road surface. And second, more specific long runs the closer the race came. That meant gradually spending more and more time close to marathon pace, again on flat road, because I always come back to this: you get good at what you train at. So if you want your muscles to handle that constant beating from the pavement for 2.5 hours plus, that's exactly the stimulus you need to expose them a lot to. But here's the key part: to get these long runs done consistently in an otherwise pretty hectic life with full-time work and small kids, I had to dial down the intensity elsewhere in my training. Instead of asking how can I fit in this hard, great interval session, I started asking how can I fit in a 30-kilometer long run, and what do I need to do, or more like what do I not need to do the rest of the week leading up to that to be able to get it done. That became the goal, and that's what I built my whole training around. Everything else became secondary. Of course I got some good intros in as well, but that wasn't priority. And this isn't just anecdotal, this is exactly how marathon physiology works. Long runs improve your muscular endurance, your running economy at marathon pace, and your fatigue resistance late in the race. And this is where marathon physiology becomes really important. Late race slowdown in the marathon usually isn't because your heart or lungs suddenly can't pump enough oxygen. For most runners, the big limiters are accumulating muscle damage and glycogen depletion, which is the next important topic of this video. Because we know from decades of research that once muscle glycogen drops too low, pace inevitably falls, even if your cardiovascular system and your muscles could theoretically keep going much longer at the same pace. And that's exactly why glycogen depletion becomes the next huge limiting factor for most people trying to run a good marathon. I knew this from before, but really understanding it and honestly nerding out a lot on this topic and using myself as a guinea pig helped me make some big breakthroughs in this last training block. And I was really surprised how big of an impact this had when I did this right. In my search for better long runs fueling protocols, I even went so far as to create an app to make it easier and more precise. So let's talk a bit more about fueling. This topic is a thing I think that many people training for longer distance endurance events sort of understand is important, but I still think most runners underestimate it. In this last training block, I finally started treating fueling as a trainable skill, which research clearly shows that it actually is, and not just something you think about on race day. That meant fueling every single long run, practicing high carb intake and training my gut to tolerate more and more carbs alongside training my legs. Carbohydrate availability during your run directly affects your training quality and recovery, so you're not only training your gut to handle more carbs by fueling properly during your longer runs. And this was the big surprise to me, that the long runs also felt so much better. I had a higher quality in them and recovered much faster when I fueled properly with carbs during the run. That meant that I sooner was ready for the next one, and since the number of quality long runs you can actually complete in a good way before a marathon will closely correlate with the end result in your marathon, fueling your long runs suddenly becomes really important. Something I also noticed was that after fueling long and tough runs properly, I had so much more energy after the run. And that matters a lot for all of us non-professional runners, because what's more important than the running, of course, is being able to spend time with family, play around with the kids, and of course be functioning on your actual job. Basically not feel completely destroyed for the rest of the day, because I had those days as well after under-fueled long runs for sure. When I really started to nerd out about this topic both for myself and for the athletes that I coached, I missed a simple tool to dial this in properly that had access to all the fueling products currently available on the market and their content. So I built one. And during the process, I also realized something important. This is an area where runners can save a lot of money. Simple homemade fueling solutions can be just as effective, often more precise for your specific run, and way cheaper than commercial products. So that's something I also included in the calculator. And thanks to that, I managed to fuel really precisely and also save a lot of money in this last training block. Short plug for my app over, let's move on to the third key change that I also think many underestimate. This might be the most underrated factor of all. During this training block, I started doing some training with runners who are simply better marathon runners than me. And honestly, compared to all training theory and high carb fueling in all of its glory, this might be the biggest hack you can use as a marathon runner or any kind of runner. Because long runs on flat, hard road can be quite boring, at least for me. They're mentally draining and they're very easy to cut short when motivation dips. So training with others gave me structure, accountability, and a huge physiological boost, and made the whole training so much more fun. And I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to get in some of the workouts I did if I was doing everything alone. What was also really cool during this whole marathon block is that even though I didn't get the end result in the marathon that I was hoping for, a sub 240 marathon, the training clearly worked along the way. because I surprised myself in a few races during the training block, for example running a 33:29 for a 10k. That really shocked me, and I'm convinced that all the focus on road running and switching out a lot of trail running for that played a big role. So yeah, specific training really works, and marathon training, if done right, can be pretty safe and work as a great base for shorter distances as well. If you want to take some guesswork out of your training, everything I use is inside the GW training squad on my Patreon. That includes my new marathon training plans on a lot of different levels depending on how much time you have to spend on training, and all other training plans for different distances with video instructions, the endurance fueling calculator I showed earlier, and all my other training tools in one place. Links in the description if you want to check it out. Now I will focus on recover properly from this last marathon and start to think about my next goal. Because if there's one thing this whole training block reminded me of, it's how much fun it actually is to work toward a goal. Thanks for watching, train smart, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.